What's going on, everyone? Brenden Schaeffer back here with another fantasy football mock draft as we continue to get set for the 2023 fantasy football season. Make sure to hit subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave your comment below with your fantasy football questions as we continue our march toward the 2023 NFL season. I've talked a lot on the channel so far in my previous videos about zero RB and hero RB builds. In past years, that's been a pretty profitable strategy for me personally, especially in full-point PPR leagues. Now, this is a good example of a way to try and change that strategy up in 2023, especially if your draft falls a certain way through the first 8 or 9 picks. We're going to go here from the 1.10 and talk about the potential to do a double hero RB or an anchor RB scenario where we draft a couple of RBs in the first couple of rounds. And the reason we would do this is if the draft falls in our direction as such, because a lot of drafts this year have seen wide receivers going with frequency early in the first round. Check out these first 9 picks. Let's see if it falls that way this time. It sort of does. We're seeing 4 wide receivers, 4 running backs, and 1 tight end go within the first 9 picks. I think that's pretty typical for what we're seeing this year with wide receivers, especially, like I said, in full-point PPR, but even in this half-point setting being pushed up draft boards. You see 4 of the first 8 picks with 1 tight end mixed in there being wide receivers. So actually more wide receivers than running backs in the first 8 picks. Is there an opportunity maybe from near the back half of the first round to go with a robust running back room and then sort of fill out your wide receivers in the mid-rounds? Because in past years, the reason that you would go with wide receivers first is because you were zigging while the community zagged. Most people drafted running backs in the first round, so the value on wide receivers was better. This year, it's more of an even split. So can we find some ways to extract value out of that? We're going to give it a shot here by going Nick Chubb with the 1.10 and seeing what falls to us. And on the turn here, you see 4 wide receivers go, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. Fantasy football managers are accustomed to seeing, hey, I'm near the turn. Oh, I know what people have done in the past. They've gone double wide receiver to try and stock up. I think in particular, though, this year, if you're in a half-point league, the idea of anchoring with a couple of stud running backs could be very profitable because wide receivers, it's just become in vogue to have everybody attack wide receivers early. And you're not even really getting as much of a benefit in a half-point PPR league by doubling up on wide receivers late in the round on the turn. We get Nick Chubb, who I feel like is a great RB1 anchor type of player. The Cleveland Browns don't have Kareem Hunt anymore, and so they will lean heavily on Nick Chubb. We love that in the back of the first round. Now we look in the second round, and we've still got a few good opportunities to pick up some nice running backs. Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor is a choice here. It really just depends on the type of risk you want to shoulder. I'm going to shoulder the type of risk that suggests that Jonathan Taylor does not miss this season, does not miss any games due to a holdout or anything like that. That's risky. We're drafting here in late August. It's the 23rd of August as I record this. Maybe we learn information about Jonathan Taylor that changes that pick, but he's one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. And you can take a look here. I'm getting him as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running back off the board. To that point in the draft, there had been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers selected. Does it make sense for me to take these 6 running back off the board who may be more like a top 2 or 3 talent in terms of running back talent? Or does it make more sense for me to go with the 9th wide receiver, which does end up being Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I'm very heavily in on? But just from a advantage perspective, competitively, I think it makes more sense to attack running back if you're in this spot in the draft. If you don't want to double up on any one position, I think starting Chubb, Amon-Ra St. Brown is an excellent way to go about it. But in half-point PPR, where you're not getting as much of an advantage for the receptions your wide receivers will get as opposed to your running backs, I think this could be a really interesting strategy. But we're going to have to follow it up by figuring out where we want to go in round 3. Breece Hall's still sitting there. We're not going to take him, though. We're going to go with Devontae Smith and see what happens on the turn here. Hopefully no more wide receivers go off. We do lose a couple, but personally, Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen, not major targets of mine this draft season. So I really didn't lose any wide receiver targets to Team 11 and Team 12. We're done at running back for a little while. That's the whole point of this double hero RB or the anchor RB strategy that we're looking to employ. Lots of quarterbacks off the board early. This may be a draft in which we decide to wait at the QB position. Most years, that's what I've been doing. This year, there's a clear top 8 or so quarterbacks: Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and then you look on the board still, Fields, Herbert, Lawrence. Those are your guys. If you don't get one of those, you might as well wait. wait for the late round guys. And so we may employ that strategy this time because we're not super comfortable being so weak at wide receiver. Here's an example where I could even consider really loading up at running back with Jahmyr Gibbs. To have Jahmyr Gibbs as my third running back, do I like him more than Debo? Yeah, I do. All right. We're really going all in on running back because I feel like that is the way the draft board is falling to us. So let's see how this plays out. It's very atypical for people who know how I like to draft. I'm not as comfortable with it. But we're going to give it a shot here as Jahmyr Gibbs' value in the 4th round, I think, is just tremendous. Get a little bit of a bump because it is a half PPR setting. Like him even more in full PPR. He probably doesn't ever last to the 4.3 in full PPR. But this is kind of the robust RB strategy, and that means we're going to have to find wide receivers we like in the later rounds. But just with the way running backs perform, I mean, let's see, where do we draft Gibbs at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He's the 15th running back off the board, and yet he's our RB3. We are set at the running back position, and we're also, because we picked Jonathan Taylor, and there is a chance he holds out if he doesn't get the trade he's looking for, we still feel like we're protected in that regard. But we do have to hit wide receiver heavily here moving along. Lawrence is the only good quarterback left that we care about, but we're not going to do it. We're not going to do tight end just yet. So it's basically between our favorite wide receiver targets here. Brandon Ayuk, Christian Watson, Mike Williams, even maybe a shot to Tyler Lockett. We feel like we're going to take a little bit of a more safe choice in Ayuk compared to Christian Watson because we like the offense better in San Francisco. Ayuk a little more proven. I think Watson, you could argue, has a little more upside, but the floor is low if Jordan Love does not pan out. So we just want to make sure we're getting guys we like. I didn't talk a lot about the Devontae Smith pick, by the way, but he's a guy that, I mean, you look, we take him here. Look at what's off the board afterwards. Keenan Allen, a little worried about the age concerns. Just he's a great producer, but it's a crowded field there in Charger land, so I just wasn't really that interested in Keenan Allen. Amari Cooper, I don't know. I got to decide how I feel about the passing game for Cleveland. I like the running game, though, which is why we took Nick Chubb. Debo Samuel, I feel like Debo and Ayuk could be very similar producers, and we got Ayuk around later. So, to me, Devontae Smith was the end of a tier, and we were happy to pick him at wide receiver in that spot. Now we have to continue to look at the board. Mike Williams, Tyler Lockett are two great options that I am certainly considering. There's nobody at quarterback that we care about. Let's go ahead and take it on Tyler Lockett. You get in the moment, you got to decide to pick the button on somebody. We click it on Tyler Lockett, who I am not counting out just yet in that Seattle offense, especially with the injury to Smith and Jigba in that passing game. I still think Tyler Lockett's going to have his role. There's a tweet from one of the prominent fantasy guys that I saw on Twitter today that was basically just listing Lockett's ADP year over year and how he ends up finishing at the wide receiver position. He has outperformed ADP every year of his career, basically. Is it going to be a little bit different this time if you worry about age concerns and more of a crowded room in Seattle with them adding JSN, who's still on the board, falls all the way to the late 7th round, which I think he'd be a great pick here. But we'll see what we want to do with this spot. I actually may just go wide receiver again with Jordan Addison. Again, remember, the strength of this team is running back. Chubb, Taylor, and Gibbs. But the idea that we're still getting wide receivers that we feel really strongly about feels good. Eventually, because this is a thinner draft, there's not like a third wide receiver or a second flex in our lineup. We do want to turn attention at some point to the tight end and quarterback positions. But also, the best way maybe at this point in the draft to get some of those studs is not by drafting them, but by drafting a really robust bench at the RB and wide receiver positions so that other teams who did prioritize and say, yeah, we really think we need Tua, Dak, or Deshaun Watson in the 7th. I'm not really looking at it that way. I'm thinking, well, who can I get in the 7th that's going to be on my bench that when he turns into a stud, I can trade him for Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert or Justin Fields. Why do I call him Herberts? Justin Herbert or Justin Fields. Trade that guy with the late round quarterback that I select who ends up being replacement level. I'm looking to trade up into a stud quarterback if I don't draft one. So the way to do that is by having the best bench in the league. So that's what we're going to try to do. Running back run really happened here, but I don't know. It's still kind of the point in the draft where I don't mind that. We'll be looking at some rookie running backs when the time comes. I think Zach Charbonnet would have to be now if we're going to have him. But there are some younger running backs later on like Devon Achane. Even some backups like Elijah Mitchell, who you can go with the kind of handcuff strategy. Tank Bigsby's down there. Certainly some good options. I don't know how this happened. Smith and Jigba fell all the way to the 8th. We're just going to pick him. I understand that we have Tyler Lockett too. That's kind of a lowers your upside sort of thing because both of those guys aren't catching balls at the same time. But JSN falling as far as he did. And now it's happening to Quentin Johnston. I can't believe. We're not going to have Quentin Johnston. He's going to go off the board here. There he goes. But that would have been, I mean, maybe in the 8th we should have taken Quentin Johnston if we were really on top of things. But JSN, I think, is the more talented player. So you kind of take your pick there. I get it. Two Seahawks, maybe not the great strategy, but they're both on our bench, and I think the odds are at least one of them is going to succeed. Yes, they might be able to pull away from one another, but I feel pretty good about that grouping. And we've got another rookie in Jordan Addison on our bench, who I didn't spend a lot of time talking about, but I'm high on the rookie wide receivers. I'm high on the idea that you're drafting them at a discount because there's a lot of fantasy drafters who the way they'll go about it is they just go, well, I haven't seen it, so how do I know it's real? If that's the attitude you want to take, I will jump in and take advantage of that at every position. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, doesn't make a difference to me. Speaking of rookies, we're going to go Devon Achane, who we're getting in the 10th or the 9th round, late 9th round as a result of the injury that he currently has. Shoulder injury. Is he going to be ready by week 1? Don't know. Don't care. Look at where we have running backs. Chubb, Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs. We can start 2 of those guys. We can start 2 wide receivers in a flex, and we can afford to wait on JSN. We can afford to wait on Devon Achane. These preseason injuries that are minor don't scare me in the draft season at all, unless I'm drafting somebody that I need in my lineup. That's not the case here. I like everybody that I have on my bench. I feel very good about it. Okay, 30 seconds on the clock. Let's try to get a look at what we're going to do at some of these other positions. We only have 3 rounds left. I'm intrigued by a couple of the quarterbacks left on the board. Kirk Cousins is one because we could stack him with Jordan Addison. I don't want to force stacks, but if they fall into my lap, I enjoy it. Jared Goff, sneaky stack with Jahmyr Gibbs because I do believe Jahmyr Gibbs is going to catch some touchdown passes for that Lions offense. We're feeling pretty good with 4 running backs right now. We got enough wide receivers. Let's go ahead and take our shot on Dalton Kincaid and hope that one of the quarterbacks that we just mentioned falls back to us. With drafting against the CPU on Sleeper, I was just getting ready to say, probably going to get burned on this. As Cousins goes, I expect Goff to probably go before we get to select. But again, we're looking for just replacement level at quarterback this late in the game. Do we get lucky? Yeah, we do. We do get lucky. So it's easy to pick Jared Goff for us at this point in the draft. Unless, all right, so Team 12 already has 2 quarterbacks. Team 11 likely to take a backup between now and our next pick. But Sam Laporta would be nice to also bench stack with our newly found quarterback, Jared Goff. But we just drafted a tight end. There's no reason to double up. I didn't mention a lot about Dalton Kincaid. I feel like I'm forgetting to actually talk about the pick sometimes. Sorry about that. Dalton Kincaid, if you've read anything about that Bills offense, they're basically using him as another wide receiver. He's not going to be in there to block. He's going to be in there to catch passes and touchdowns from Josh Allen. So we really like him. We're going to go Jared Goff, and if Laporta falls to us, man, we're taking him too. We're going to double stack that thing. Tank Bigsby is a great value here in the 12th round, and Tyler Higbee. They do take a tight end. I probably should have looked closer at Team 11 and realized they could burn me on the Laporta love, but didn't happen. We get our stack with our quarterback and our backup tight end. Love the way this played out. Let's count the rookies. Let's count the rookies here. Our starting lineup, largely veterans, but still young guys, mostly with upside. Like Ayuk, Smith, they're still on the rise in their career. Chubb, maybe not, but I think this is going to be the best year we have ever seen from Nick Chubb. No Kareem Hunt to take some of that workload away. They'll still use like Jerome Ford or somebody else, but Chubb's going to have a great year. Jonathan Taylor, I get it, it's a risk, but in what universe are you getting Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd round? Like, think back to last year. He was the 1-1 for a lot of people. I was more of a Justin Jefferson guy. And Cooper Kupp, you could have made an argument for either. Kupp obviously getting hurt made Jefferson the ploy, and now he's he's going up in that range again. But Jonathan Taylor, for a lot of people, man, he was right up there in the top 3 picks. Now you're getting him in the 2nd round. Is there a risk baked in? There is. But you can start Jahmyr Gibbs if something should go wrong for Taylor. Smith and Ayuk, couple of young guns, really coming into their own in the NFL. I think this could be big seasons for both. And then we are relying upon one rookie in our tight end, Dalton Kincaid, but we also have another rookie. He's kind of not showing on the screen. But Sam Laporta, down at the bottom for us, is a guy that we're excited about. Seems to be getting all the opportunities with the first team in that Lions offense. And then we look at our bench. It's 3 rookies and Tyler Lockett. Addison Smith-Njigba is a guy that just fell to us in the 8th. I think that was just an ADP thing. He was listed as the top wide receiver all the way through, and we just ended up, he fell all the way through this round. Right here, no wide receivers go in that mid-6th. Well, it was actually trending this way. Yeah, I'm honestly kind of surprised. Christian Kirk, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman, Deontay Johnson. I think I'd take the upside of Addison over all of those guys. So we just had to do that. And then Smith-Njigba, no wide receivers here on the turn. We take advantage. One of Smith-Njigba or Lockett's going to be great. The other one, maybe we could try and guess properly and trade while the other one still has value. But it's also possible Geno can feed all three in that offense. It's just going to be a little bit diluted compared to what we're used to seeing with just Lockett and Metcalf eating for the Seattle Seahawks. And yeah, I think there's a lot of upside on this bench. Guys that it's like, if they don't start strong, don't worry about it. Don't we always see rookies emerge by midseason? We do, and I think we have a lineup that's good enough to where we don't have to panic on any of these rookies if they don't start off strong. We're not really going to be relying upon our bench all that much. So I think this is a great team, really good setup in a 12-team half PPR setting. And it's a setup that I don't usually take, but when you have a chance to go Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor toward the turn, what do you think about that? Let me know in the YouTube comment section below. I think that's a way you could go. Like, are you going Diggs and Adams? Are you getting two great players? Of course. They're still first-round caliber players. But relative to your league mates, you're getting like the 9th and 10th best receivers instead of Nick Chubb, the 5th best running back, Jonathan Taylor, the 6th best running back. It's just an advantage at those positions in a league where you don't need to start as many guys at receiver because there's only 2 in a flex. And if you wanted to start a running back in a flex, I never do, but you could, especially with the way that we've designed this team. If all 3 running backs are eating, that's going to be the deal. And then we'll take all of his wide receiver depth and we'll trade it for a quarterback, or we'll trade it for a more proven tight end if we feel like we need to do that, if our rookies at tight end don't pan out. A lot of the type of drafting I like to do definitely pertains to how can I make trades? How can I set my roster up to, A, maintain health, which is why I usually draft wide receivers first. Yeah, running backs can get hurt, and if that happens, we'll have to figure out how to go about that. But we do at least have 3, so if we lose one, maybe not the end of the world. But the other aspect of it is, like, where am I going to be strong and robust? And can I trade from that depth? At wide receiver, I feel like the answer is going to be yes by, like, week 8. You might not see it right away with Addison, Smith-Njigba, but eventually I think those guys are going to emerge, and you're going to feel really good about where you're at the wide receiver position. 5 total wide receivers, probably not as many as I usually like to have, but I think it's still a very solid setup for the way that we have this planned out. So going over our roster one more time before we get out of here. Jared Goff, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk, Dalton Kincaid. Jahmyr Gibbs if we want to flex him, or we can go with Tyler Lockett in the flex, Addison in the flex, even JSN when he gets healthy. Devon A-Chain, a little bit of rookie juice at the running back position from the late 9th round. And then Sam Laporta, just in case he's the rookie that goes off rather than Dalton Kincaid. I think we're covered at the tight end spot. And if both of them go off, boom, more trade fodder. So let me know what you think of this draft. Let me know what you think of the videos on this channel. Hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you want regular, pretty much daily at this point, fantasy football content. And I do take requests as well. Drop your comment on the type of league draft you would like to see mocked. I could go 16-teamer. I could go 14-teamer. Maybe we even get an auction together. Just let me know below what you like, and we'll continue to build this channel up. Appreciate you guys as always for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.